Thank you for the folks that are here for joining us today for this first ever DataVision Community Class. My name is Connor, and then we've got a couple folks from DataVision as well here helping out for the class. We've got Freddie, Renee, and Todd, who will be helping to answer questions and provide additional resources as well. So today we are going to take a 101 approach to how Wi-Fi connectivity works and give you a better idea about some of the common terms and processes that you may have heard about before. So the goal for today is to help you kind of better understand how your connection works and why things happen the way that they do. If you've ever had the frustrating buffering wheel pop up when trying to stream a movie, you'll have a better idea after this class of why that can happen and sort of what can be done to remedy it. So just a couple of things before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording this class tonight. Just know that the only thing that's actually being recorded is the screen that I'm sharing here, as well as our faces, those of us here from DataVision who have our cameras on. Folks who are joining us, none of your information is being recorded. But we are going to upload the recording of this class to the DataVision YouTube channel shortly afterwards. So that will be available to watch as a replay as well if you'd like. And then how things are going to work tonight, if you have questions or comments, we're going to use the chat button. So if you're watching on a laptop or a desktop computer and you don't see that little chat button appear right there, just kind of wiggle your mouse around. You should see that toolbar pop up where you can click on the chat button. And I'm just going to double check real quick that chat is enabled for everybody. Yep, it looks like folks can chat with us if they have questions. And then if you're watching on a tablet or even a smartphone and you don't see that chat button, you can just tap your finger right on your screen and that toolbar should pop up either from the top or the bottom of the screen. So I want to just point out a couple of helpful resources here before we get started that I would encourage you to take a look at or bookmark into your web browser. The first one here is a link to the DataVision internet troubleshooting webpage, and that has some information that can kind of help you troubleshoot any connection issues that you may be having with your Wi-Fi router or just general troubleshooting tips. The second link here takes you to the DataVision residential internet webpage, and this I just linked here because it has some more information on the internet services that we offer. If after this class today, you're interested in maybe increasing the speed to your home or getting started with managed Wi-Fi service, which we'll talk about in a moment as well, this webpage is a good resource to learn more. And then the third one here is a speed test tool so that you can see if you're getting speeds close to what you should be. DataVision refers customers to DirectLink, which is a local partner co-op of ours, to run those speed tests using the tool on their website. So that's why the URL here looks that way. And just to sort of preface a little bit, I'm not necessarily able to look at your personal situation here today. So if you have questions about your home's connection or something going on with your specific account, I'll invite you to give the customer care team a phone call, and then they can help you with any of those questions. Before we get started, let's take a look real quick at a quick video that shows some of the wonders of Wi-Fi technology and sort of see what sorts of amazing things that one can do with it.
Okay. The X10s are online.
Gentlemen, I am now about to send a signal from this laptop through our local ISP, racing down fiber optic cable at the speed of light to San Francisco, bouncing off a satellite in geosynchronous orbit to Lisbon, Portugal, where the data packets will be handed off to submerged transatlantic cables terminating in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and transferred across the continent via microwave relays back to our ISP and the X10 receiver attached to this lamp. Look at me, I've got goosebumps. Are we ready on the stereo?
Go for stereo.
So this is a funny scene from the TV show The Big Bang Theory, right, where the guys use the internet to send a signal that eventually turns on their lamp and then their stereo, right? So, of course, nowadays we have way upgraded versions of this sort of technology with smart home tech, lets you control these sorts of things with just your voice. But this just goes to show some of the amazing things that the internet can do, even if it may seem somewhat rudimentary on the surface, right? Because all they did was turn on their lamp and their stereo, but they did send a signal all the way across the world using different types of internet infrastructure to do so. So it's a really cool thing if you think about it. So another funny story, real quick, about the internet for perhaps a rather menial task is actually about the world's first webcam. So in 1991, a pair of students at the University of Cambridge in England, Quentin Stafford Fraser and Paul Jardetsky, they developed an ingenious plan that solved the biggest problem of their time: walking into the computer lab to discover that the coffee pot was empty. A true tragedy, right? So to save people the disappointment of finding the coffee pot empty, they set up a camera and built a program called X-Coffee, which you can see here on the screen. And that program provided a live picture of the coffee pot to all desktop computers that were on the building's network. The camera was eventually connected to the internet in the early days of the World Wide Web, and it gained some international fame as an early snapshot of the capabilities of the internet before this program was officially retired in 2001. So just a fun story about what was essentially the world's first webcam. All right. So before we talk about Wi-Fi, we first need to talk about the differences between the internet and Wi-Fi service. So sometimes we hear that internet and Wi-Fi are the same thing, or that maybe someone says they don't need internet service, they just want Wi-Fi. But the truth is that there is no Wi-Fi without the physical internet infrastructure that allows data signals to travel between different points. So essentially, internet service is the signal that's sent from our central office to your home over our internet infrastructure. Wi-Fi, on the other hand, is the wireless distribution of some of that signal through the air. Devices can then connect to that signal wirelessly and access the internet to stream, game, video chat, email, so on and so forth, right? Devices can also connect to the internet through a direct wired connection as well. And we'll talk about this in a moment too. But first, how exactly do internet signals travel back and forth to and from devices? We'll talk about this on the next slide. But also, just as kind of a fun fact, Wi-Fi is actually not an abbreviation for wireless fidelity, as some folks might think. And Wi-Fi actually doesn't really even mean anything itself as a term. However, around the time that Wi-Fi technology was created, the term hi-fi, which is short for high fidelity, was a term commonly used to describe the high quality reproduction of sound or images. In 1999, a group of major companies in the electronics industry formed a nonprofit called the Wireless Ethernet Compatibility Alliance, which is now known as the Wi-Fi Alliance. And they decided to call this new wireless technology Wi-Fi because it was a catchy name and it sounded similar to hi-fi, which many people were already familiar with at the time. So the name stuck and we still use it today. All right, so there are several steps and multiple pieces of equipment involved along the way that allow your devices to access the internet through a wireless or a Wi-Fi connection. On internet infrastructure other than fiber, like older copper cabling, for example, a modem would connect your home network to your internet service provider or ISP, and that's DataVision, while a router lets your devices use that internet connection. However, on a fiber connection, the signal from the internet service provider travels over the fiber lines as beams of light, which of course travel very, very quickly at the speed of light. Those data signals then reach what is essentially a modem, and it's called an optical network terminal. And these are usually located on the outside of homes. They're usually little gray boxes, or they may be in a garage somewhere like that. Now, once that signal, that beam of light reaches the ONT, that optical network terminal, they are then converted by the ONT into electrical signals and are then sent to your Wi-Fi router through Ethernet cabling that's running through your walls. The router then sends those signals to your devices wirelessly through the air, okay? So let's talk a little bit about some of the different reasons and scenarios that you would use a Wi-Fi connection. Now, as we've talked a little bit about already, right? A Wi-Fi connection allows you to connect to devices wirelessly, right? This is going to be really the primary way to connect most modern devices to your home's internet connection. So think about devices like smartphones, tablets, handheld gaming systems like a Nintendo Switch, streaming TV devices like an Amazon Fire TV stick or a Roku box, right? Now, since the internet signal is being broadcast wirelessly through the air, there is the possibility of interference occurring with that signal, and that can impact the strength and speed of that wireless signal. We'll talk a little bit more about this in just a moment, excuse me. But think of this a little bit like a radio signal. Your radio or your devices might not be able to hear that signal in some places unless it's strong enough and without interference. Think about maybe you're listening to the radio and it's a Portland-based station. Well, as you start to head south, or maybe you're heading towards Central Oregon, that signal starts to degrade and you can't hear that station anymore. It's the same sort of thing with your Wi-Fi signal. There's different things that can impact the strength of you being able to receive a strong signal. And then in addition to external interference, the age and software capabilities of your router and your devices themselves can play a role in the performance of your overall Wi-Fi network. So just as an example, if you have a 10-year-old router hidden in your hallway closet behind a bunch of books and old DVDs and stuff, if that's what's powering your Wi-Fi network, it's probably not going to be giving you the full capability that you could have with a newer Wi-Fi system. Even if you subscribe to DataVision's fastest speeds, gigabit service, those are some of the fastest speeds out there. And you've got an old router, it might not be able to get that full potential if it's an older model and doesn't have the guts, the processing power inside of it capable of deploying those fast internet speeds that you subscribe to. And then the same thing goes for your individual devices as well. If you're trying to stream a movie or play a game on a device that's getting up there in age, you may have a slower experience as well, right? Think about trying to stream a modern 4K movie on an iPhone that's 10 years old. You're probably not going to have the best experience that you could have with newer technology, okay? So now that we've discussed those wireless connections a little bit, let's talk about wired internet connections. So once the internet signal reaches your router, we saw in our last slide that devices can connect to the router via a Wi-Fi signal, but they can also connect to your router with a wired connection through an Ethernet port. And in addition to the router, you might have additional Ethernet outlets in your home coming out of the wall. So you could also potentially plug a device directly into the wall in some cases, or this might be where you have an additional Wi-Fi access point, maybe if you have a larger home, something like that. So let's talk about why you might use a wired connection. Okay, so an Ethernet cord here looks just like this one that we have on the screen. It looks like a phone cord, but it's a little thicker and it won't fit into a phone jack. Your home will likely have one or more special ports in the wall that are specifically designed for an Ethernet cord. This cord can then be plugged directly into a variety of types of devices for a direct connection right to your home internet network. And there are a number of reasons why you might want to use a wired connection. So first, you are literally plugged right into the network. So just as an example, on fiber, that signal is coming right to your home. It goes to the ONT, and then the ONT transfers that signal through Ethernet cords in the wall, and then you plug directly into it. So you don't have to fight through some of the other things that could be going on in the air like you do on a Wi-Fi connection that could cause interference. That makes a wired connection overall more stable and reliable. You may also have access to faster speeds on a wired connection since that data, again, is coming right to your device rather than through sort of a middleman through the Wi-Fi signal in the air, okay? So which devices might you plug into your network with an Ethernet cord? Of course, there's some devices that just simply aren't compatible with this. They don't have a port like a smartphone, tablets, many other devices, right? So for me personally at home, I have an Ethernet cord running to my Nintendo Switch gaming console for a stable, reliable connection when I'm playing games online, or even if I'm downloading games onto my console, it downloads much, much quicker and more reliably over a wired connection than on Wi-Fi in most cases. I also have an Ethernet cord running right to my smart TV so that when we're streaming shows and movies, we have the best possible connection to our home internet, right? So in general, a wired connection is best, and it will always be the best for devices that you want to make sure have that direct line to your network for that most reliable signal. So think about things like desktop computers, gaming systems, smart TVs, things that don't move around, right? That's the joy of Wi-Fi, is you stay connected to the internet even if you're moving around. However, I do want to make note that Wi-Fi equipment and technology is becoming more and more advanced, and routers are now capable of delivering internet speeds at almost the same rate as Ethernet connections. So some of the new routers that DataVision has are fantastic and honestly make it so that you don't even really need wired connections. And we'll talk about this in a little more as well. So when it comes to the actual Wi-Fi signal itself that travels through the air, there's really two different types of main signals that your devices can access. And these two signal bands operate on separate frequencies. They're what's known as a 2.4 gigahertz band and a 5 gigahertz band. And you can sort of think of these again like radio technology. Maybe one is the FM band and one is the AM frequency, right? So most Wi-Fi routers are able to transmit both signals at the same time, and your devices can generally connect to either one of them. I want to talk about the differences between these two signal bands and then why you might want to use one over the other. Now, real quick, this is not to be confused with the 5G networks that mobile providers use. 5 gigahertz is, again, a frequency used on dual band Wi-Fi routers that devices can connect to, while 5G simply means 5th generation, and it's associated with modern cellular networks and how mobile devices can access the internet, okay? So the 2.4 gigahertz band is best for devices that move around a lot throughout the day, or those that are farther away from your Wi-Fi access point, like your smartphone, especially if you have a large home. Now, this band has a longer range and can actually penetrate solid objects more easily, like walls or furniture. The 2.4 gigahertz frequency is also used, however, by many other electronic devices and appliances, right? Like microwaves, baby monitors, security cameras, and even garage door openers are all also operating on this same frequency in the air. So if you have many of these devices in your home, or if you live in an apartment or a condo area, that 2.4 gigahertz frequency may become congested more often, which can impact the speed and signal quality that your devices can access, okay? On the other hand, the 5 gigahertz band is best for devices that are closer to your router so that they can take advantage of the faster speeds that the 5 gigahertz frequency offers. So think about devices like gaming console, right? We mentioned earlier, smart TV, home computers. The 5 gigahertz band is also ideal for devices that engage in high bandwidth activities online, like gaming or video calling or streaming high definition movies, right? In addition, older devices may only be able to connect to the 2.4 band, while newer ones may be able to connect to one or the other. Again, think of this sort of like older radios, only being able to get the AM frequency and not the FM frequency. So you might be wondering how to change which frequency a device is connected to. And with some Wi-Fi routers and systems, this is a manual process where you would actually have two different Wi-Fi SSIDs. SSID just means network name. And those would show up in the list of networks where you go to connect a device, one labeled 2.4 and one labeled 5. But with a lot of the new routers that are available out there, they actually have software built into them that automatically assigns your devices to the most optimal network for that situation, for where they're at. And then they can even reevaluate things periodically. So if the router notices that a device is on one frequency but isn't having the best connection experience, it can actually automatically optimize things and move the device over to the other frequency to make sure you're getting the best experience possible. Okay, so I wanted to share a couple of quick tips for how to improve your Wi-Fi signal. And we've touched on this a little bit already. So this first one is what our technicians will do when they install your equipment, right? If you get managed Wi-Fi service through DataVision, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So the router should be placed in a central location, free of obstructions, like you can see in this little graphic we have here on the screen. We don't want the router hidden away behind a bunch of books and other things that could block the Wi-Fi signal from reaching where it needs to, okay? The next tip is to try and reduce interference from other devices that emit a wireless frequency, right? Like those baby monitors, garage door openers, things like that. and some of the new routers, like the ones DataVision is using, can help to manage that for you automatically. And finally, and this is a big one, make sure you've got enough internet speed coming into your home to support all of your devices. And one thing that we are actually going to do real quick is I'm going to launch a poll that hopefully you can see on your screen right here. I'm curious to know, how many devices do you have connected to your home network? Is it just a couple, maybe 5 to 9 different devices, upwards of 10 to 14? Or maybe even 20 or more devices. How many different things do you have connected to your network right now? So I just wanted to go over some of the ports that you'll see on many common Wi-Fi routers. And this is actually the back of one of the types of routers that DataVision uses for our managed Wi-Fi service. I want to go over just a couple of these. Number one right here that you can see in the red, these are outlets that can be used to connect phone systems that utilize what's known as a VoIP network. That stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. And that's when a phone system uses the internet to make and receive telephone calls rather than traditional phone lines. Number two here, these yellow ports you can see right here, these are what are known as LAN ports, or local area network ports. Also where you can plug in an Ethernet cord. So that's why it says Ethernet right there. We talked about how you can use these ports to set up a wired connection with devices earlier. So if you've got a smart TV, like me personally, downstairs we have the entertainment center with the TV, gaming console, and I've got my router right there. And then I have Ethernet cords plugged from my router into my smart TV and my Nintendo Switch. So that's how you would use those ports. Right next to it, number three, that is a WAN port, or a wide area network. And this is what actually allows your router to access the internet signal that's sent to your home from our central office. So the WAN port connects to an Ethernet cord that's plugged into your wall. And then that is what connects your router overall to the internet. Then devices can connect to the router itself, either through a wired connection or through a wireless connection to access the internet. And then number four over here, these are just both power ports for the router. And there's two different ones that can be used just for differing voltages for the electronic wiring in the home. So that's the kind of the main ports. There's a couple others here that we didn't go over. And these are really just used by some of our kind of expert technicians if they need to come out and make any updates to the firmware of the router or your network overall. Okay. So now, as I mentioned earlier about not all routers having the same capabilities, particularly older models with limited tech for newer connections, I want to mention quickly the managed Wi-Fi service that DataVision offers. For those that prefer a more hands-off approach to their Wi-Fi, just want to set it and forget it and let it work, consider our managed Wi-Fi service. So with this, you get state-of-the-art Wi-Fi equipment installed in your home by our local expert technicians. And they're going to make sure that it's configured and set up in the most optimal location of your home to ensure a strong signal to all of your connected devices. And if you ever have any issues, our technicians can provide real-time remote support with advanced tools to see exactly what's going on with your network. So if you're interested in managed Wi-Fi service, give our team a call and we can tell you more about it. All right. So when we talk about internet speeds, there's really two separate categories. We have download speeds and then we have upload speeds, and they're both important in their own ways. So download speeds are most commonly advertised by internet service providers, while upload speeds have traditionally been less advertised. So the reason that this is that traditionally download speeds have been people generally download data from the internet at higher rates than they upload data to the internet. So the demand has been greater, but as we become more and more connected and we do more things online, the demand for greater upload speeds has been steadily increasing, okay? So next, we'll talk about some examples of online activities that require download speeds and others that need upload speeds. Okay, so for download speeds, think about things that require you to pull data down from the internet. Think about things like streaming movies, shows, and music, and downloading files from an email to your computer. You are accessing a server, pulling that information down from the internet to view it on your device. You are using download speeds. Same thing as scrolling through social media apps, downloading a video game to a gaming console, or loading a website to view. any time where you are accessing something on the internet and then viewing it on your device, that is using download speeds. Conversely, think about it the other way for upload speeds when you're sending information up to the internet from a device. Now, some common activities would be streaming video from a security or doorbell camera to your phone or other device. And this is actually a unique one because you're really using both downloads and upload speeds at the same time. Your doorbell camera is taking video and then uploading that video to the internet, which is then downloaded to your device so you can watch it on your device. You're using both upload and download speeds. Think about sending files or photos over email or a messaging service, or even backing up or uploading your files to a cloud storage service. You are uploading data to the internet. Video chats, like what we're doing right now over Zoom or FaceTime, or playing games online on a gaming console. You are doing actions on a device and sending it up to the internet, okay? All right. So we, of course, want you to get the most out of your service, but as we've learned today, there are some factors that can limit your overall connection experience. Running an internet speed test can give you a better idea of what's going on if you're experiencing interruptions or slow speeds, especially if you subscribe to fast speeds. So running a test on a Wi-Fi connection may not come as close to your full internet speed you're subscribed to because it's not a direct connection wired right into your home network. So it's not necessarily the best method to tell if there's an issue with the speed that's coming into your home. For that, you'll want to use a device on a wired connection to run the speed test so you get a true reading of the speed coming into your home. However, if you run both tests and notice that the Wi-Fi speed test is significantly slower than the Wi-Fi test, or than the wired test, excuse me, this could indicate that there's an issue with the Wi-Fi signal coming from your router. You could also receive a low speed rating if you're using an old Ethernet cable that doesn't support the fast speeds of today, similar to using a super old router, right? And then to get the most accurate reading, we usually recommend that folks run at least 2 speed tests so that we can see the average between the two, because there may have been some variance between the tests depending on what else was going on your network at that time. But whatever your issues may be, our tech support team can help troubleshoot them and then find a solution for you. So if we look at this image, this is actually a speed test that I ran from my home this morning. We've got a few different terms and numbers going on here. So this speed test tool is located on our partner website, and we can paste the link to it in the chat here as well. If you wouldn't mind doing that, Freddie or Todd, that would be awesome. Thank you. First, so looking at the graphic here, you've got your download and your upload speeds here, which will tell you the speed that you're getting at that point in time, and then on the device you're doing that test from. And we just talked about why you would want to do a wired test over a wireless test. Another thing you have here is ping, and this is essentially the reaction time of your internet connection. It's how long it takes for the data signal to travel from your device to the internet server for the website, the streaming service, whatever it is that you're accessing at that time. And for ping, really the lower the number, the better. And then you also have jitter down here, which essentially measures the rate at which ping changes over a period of time. It's essentially the fluctuation or the variation of ping speeds. And as with ping, the lower this number is, the better. And with ping and jitter, these are important for online gamers, and especially those that play fast-paced games, because when you press a button on your controller to make your character on screen take an action, you want that action to happen immediately on screen, because that can mean the difference between winning and losing a match. And many times gamers will refer to delays in their gaming actions as lag. So that's where that term comes from. And on a fiber connection, generally your speeds are going to be really, really good. And then your ping and your jitter are going to be very low, again, because the data signals on fiber travel extremely quickly. So that's going to keep those numbers low and keep a very smooth experience for you. All right. So with all of these devices and online activities in mind, another thing to mention is that some internet service providers have internet data caps, or essentially a limit on how much internet you can use every month. And if you go over that limit with some providers, they can charge extra fees and significantly slow down your connection as a penalty. But as DataVision customers with our service, there are no data caps on any of our speed tiers. You can stream and game as much as you want without worrying about extra fees or slowed service. And as we get into this, so some providers' lower end data caps are around 300 gigabytes for the month. Certain online activities use up different amounts of data. So if we look at this real quick, for example, Netflix says that streaming a 2-hour regular HD movie would use about 3 gigabytes of data per hour. While as we increase our stream quality here, our picture quality, a 4K Ultra HD movie uses about 7 gigabytes of data, 7 to 10 gigabytes of data just per hour. And then as technology increases, 8K Ultra HD is going to be more and more available as time goes on. And this can actually use upwards of 44 gigabytes of data per hour. And you actually even need an internet speed of at least 100 megabits per second to even be able to stream 8K on one device. So the demand for fiber connections like those that DataVision offers are going to be increasing over time as technology advances and online activities require faster speeds and more bandwidth to be able to work the way that they should. Okay. Couple of other things here. An hour of video calling like we're doing right now on Zoom or FaceTime can use upwards of 1 gigabyte per hour. But again, you don't have to worry. Data usage can add up fast, and it can significantly impact users' connection performance in their wallets if they're not careful. But you guys made the smart choice of choosing DataVision for your internet provider, so you don't have anything to worry about in regards to data caps or slowed speeds from data limits. Awesome. All right. So that's really it for the presentation today. We'll stick around and answer any more questions that you might have. You can also email us at customercare@datavision.coop with additional questions, comments, or feedback. We would also love some ideas for topics and feedback for future community classes if you have any. I think we're going to go ahead and end the class for the evening. Just want to thank you all so much again for joining us tonight. I know it's the first day of summer and there's still quite a bit of daylight left with it being the the longest day of the year actually. So I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their evening. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight.